Hello, my name is Anna Rivas. It is September 18th, and I'm going to do Lab 2, which is to discuss the different types of tissues in our body, starting with epithelial tissue, also known as epithelium. This refers to the sheet of cells that surround our external surface of our body, or the cells that are found in the lining of our internal cavities and internal passageway. Even some are found in organs. These are classified by cell shape and how many layers there are in the cell of the cells. So first we have squamous epithelial tissue, which are flat-like cells. We have cuboidal epithelium, which are cube-like, squared-like, box-like cells. And then we have columnar epithelium, which are column-like. They're rectangular in shape. One layer of cells would be called simple epithelial tissue. Multi-layers would be stratified epithelial tissue. We also have pseudo-stratified epithelial tissue. Pseudo means false, so these are falsely stratified, which means they are actually just one layer, but they look like multi-layer, and that is due to the distorted cell shape. This can be found in our respiratory tract and our trachea, to be specific. These cells are also ciliated, which is good for the movement of foreign objects that we inhale. Another type of tissue that we're going to discuss is connective tissue. Connective tissue are tissues that bind our cells and our organs in our bodies. Connective tissue functions in support, in protection, and integration of all parts throughout our body. The different types of connective tissue can be classified based on the characteristics of their extracellular matrix. And the extracellular matrix is composed of water, elastic fibers, collagen fibers, and reticular fibers. One type of connective tissue that we have is loose connective tissue, where the fibers are loosely organized, leaving large spaces in between them, which is good for absorption. There are other classifications of this type of tissue, and that is adipose, which is fat tissues, areolar, loose connective tissues, which is found surrounding our vessels and our blood and our lymphs. And then we also have the reticular loose connective tissue, which is mesh-like, and this is the soft padding in some of our internal organs, such as our spleen and our liver. Another type of classification of muscle tissue, of connective tissue, would be dense connective tissue. Dense connective tissue are bundles of fibers that provide strength, elasticity, and protection. There are two types of dense connective tissue, just like how there are three types of loose connective tissue. The two types of dense connective tissue are regular dense connective tissue, where fibers run parallel to each other, which enhances the resistance to stretching in the fiber orientation. These can be found in ligaments and in tendons. Another type of dense connective tissue would be irregular dense connective tissue, where direction of the tissues of the fibers basically are random, which enhances resistance to stretching in all different directions versus one direction. Another type of classification of connective tissue would be supportive connective tissue, where the matrix is densely packed with fibers. These are bone and cartilage connective tissue. Another type of classification for connective tissue would be fluid connective tissue, which is found in blood and our lymph. The extracellular matrix is called plasma, and that is basically the dissolving of different types of nutrients in it to be transported throughout the body. Muscle tissue is excitable, which means that it responds to stimulus. It is also contractile, which means it shortens and creates a pulling force. There are different types of muscle tissue, and these can be classified based on their structure and their function. We have skeletal muscle tissue, which support the bones. They touch the bones, and the contractions of this is what allows us to do voluntary movements such as facial expressions, posture, and just locomotion. They have distinct characteristics in how they look. They are long cylindrical fibers that run parallel to each other and are striated with multinucleated cells. A different type of muscle tissue would be our cardiac muscle tissue, which make the contracting walls of our heart. The intercalated disc that join the cells together. Allows them to synchronize the cells' actions and do the involuntary movement. The way they look, they are not fibers that run parallel to each other. They are branched, but they do have very distinct striations as well as the skeleton muscle fibers did. The thing with this, though, is that there are one nucleus, not multinucleus, in these cells. A different type of muscle tissue would be the smooth muscle tissue, which in comparison to the way the other two muscle tissues look, it looks nothing like those. So they appear to have spindles, and they don't have very distinct striations as well. Basically, no striations are visible. These are found to do involuntary movements of our internal organs. Next, we have nervous tissue, which, just like muscle tissue, is also excitable, which means they respond to a stimulus. Nervous tissue are capable to receive and send electrochemical signals throughout the body to provide different parts of the body with different information. The most distinctive cell in the nervous tissue is neurons. So neurons are basically characterized by their abilities to receive a stimulus and respond by generating an electrical signal called action potential, which can rapidly move to different parts of your body to send information to those parts. The morphology of a neuron is very distinct in that it is one big cell body that branches out into what we call dendrites, which are what receives chemical signals from other neurons. There is also the long tail-like structure, which is called our axon, which usually is covered in myelin sheath, because that works as an insulator, since the axon is what is responsible to send signals away from the cell and to other neurons. Since nervous tissue is responsible for sending, receiving the action potentials, it is safe to say that this is found throughout our body. And that is basically it for the different types of tissues in our cells. We went over epithelial tissue, we went over connective tissue, muscle tissue, and then lastly we went over nervous tissue. Thank you.